Yes,
Welcome.
it's like the nefarious anglerfish. No, I'm going to do away with
The
that. I'm going to do away with that. Welcome to the last bit. Is it? It probably is the last thing that's going to be recorded this year. I think. Something would have to happen. I think like Denmark would have to sink or something for me to have to actually record something after this point.
considering they're also done now, right? They're probably off for the holiday.
They're properly done, especially because
I would imagine.
we know for a fact now that we're not getting anything on Christmas Day, even though there was a theory that we would, and I think it was true because, and I guess you just don't. I was meant to show you this actually. Damn it! Fuck. Hold on. I'm going to have to show you this quickly. Well, he's seen it now.
Yeah.
He's seen the helmet. This is the only current events thing. So they actually got the nomination for Labour of Love. I don't know if they'll win. I think they actually have a real shot though. Genuinely, if you look at the other nominees, Rust,
I guess, yeah.
Apex Legends, Red Dead Redemption 2, Dota 2. I think that's actually all of them. So there's my knowledge of the Steam Awards.
The issue is those there's a lot that each of them have a lot of players. They are very, very big games, but also a lot of the players of those hate them.
Yeah,
like
I've even seen people who don't play Deep Rock vote for Deep Rock, which is like, it's interesting. I did vote for Deep Rock, and I think it's literally, it is only because I think they deserve it in general. I think it's going to become apparent over the next 2 hours that I wouldn't have chosen this year as the one for them to win necessarily, but I think in general they deserve it. Just to cop that W. But either way, they got the nomination, which means we get a hat. I love hats, especially when they're actually decent. Though I've been doing some Twitter interactions with the Halo community. So there's a Christmas event on in Halo at the moment, and there was some discourse about like themed cosmetics. So they actually have some pretty cool stuff, like these shoulder pads that have like a rack of like candy canes in them, and then but it's like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a version where it was actually just like sniper rounds or something, so they're actually usable? And I remember, I don't know what the original tweet was, but I just made this reply that was basically like, themed cosmetics or just themed content is cool, but it's like especially better when it works both as themed content but also at any other time of the year. And so far it's something that Deep Rock really hasn't certainly haven't mastered. Things like the chillax are things like that, you know, like that's like a cool pickaxe, no matter what, for example. But this is obviously separate, and that's why I don't mind getting things like that. The jagged bug basher, they literally called it a better version of the previous one as well, the bolted marauder. Which it is. It's just a nicer hat.
It is a win-win solution, really, isn't it? Is that people wanted the Viking hat because there's a reason why they gave it to us as a reward, right? They know it's a really desired type of helmet in a dwarf game because of Honeydew, Simon. But they also then, they didn't really want to add that back because they wanted to reward players that were there. So it's like, what do you do at that point? And they decided to make another one.
It is one of these small examples of actual FOMO though, where they reiterated that they're not bringing that one back. And then it was like, but we will make a better one, and they have. And this will be obviously FOMO again. There'll only be a limited amount of time that'll be available. And I think that's fine. It does make the relationship with Deep Rock and FOMO weirder though, when it's so little of it that it almost makes you question why bother. But I guess it gives them some kind of pedigree. But it's also like, I don't think it's a valuable notoriety because it's not the craziest. It's not like the craziest stuff. It's FOMO, and they wouldn't want that either. It's just these weird little things, really, isn't it? It's like very obscure. Yeah, like the holiday hats make sense, but they also don't because they're not good. Because
yeah. The thing is with FOMO is that there's like layers to it, and this layer is barely even FOMO, right? Like there is fear of missing out, right? That's what FOMO stands for.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want to miss out on this headgear, but they are not making you do anything more than log in, right?
Yeah.
To get it.
Yeah.
You just have to go log in on a certain amount of time to claim the thing, and it's basically then just a certificate, or not a certificate, but just saying that you were there when this occurred, that you would help nominate or whatever, right? And that is like the least harmful form of FOMO, right? When people complain about FOMO in games, this is not what they refer to. They refer to the season passes that have you grind for like 100 hours just to get this like cosmetic at the very end because you're afraid of not having it, right? Like there are even though this is FOMO, this is like the most player friendly FOMO you can get, especially considering like even if you don't get it this time, there's a sliver of a chance next time they're nominated, they'll make an even better one, if you know what I mean.
What would that even be, though? I guess like Loki's
I don't
helmet
know.
or something. You know.
Yeah, it would start getting like more and more badass.
I said in the video, it was like I was like very, very effusive about the fact that it wasn't a demand, but it was merely just like a suggestion. It'd be really nice if we could actually get like an armor set in this style. I think. What the hell was that?
Yeah.
Has someone just awoken from their slumber?
No, that's my brother being my brother.
Yeah, but what if he wakes up the beast?
Yeah, you probably will. This is the day before Christmas Eve.
It is.
The house.
How
is
do you feel
active.
about people who call it Christmas Eve Eve? Because I think those people should be jettisoned
I
into the sun.
I feel like that was my mum literally earlier today.
My mum too. It's mum's. Okay, that's good. We established that. Yeah,
mum's thing.
I actually, no, I'm not going to say that. I was about to joke that I beat her up, which obviously I didn't.
Yeah,
I think it's stupid as shit, though. It's the kind of thing that children would say. You know, it's like when it's like when someone, I don't know, when someone insults you as a child, it's like, you can't say that. It's like, well, I can say it. It's just your choice whether or not you get offended. It's the kind of thing, it's that kind of childlike logic. It's like, Christmas Eve, fuck you, perish. Fuck you. There's only one Christmas Eve. It's the 24th of December. Okay, deal with it. But yeah, so we're not going to get our fantabulous Christmas gift because it's so funny because they literally had to put it in the post. It's like, yeah, because everything's fucking broken. We actually can't give you the hat when we were meant to. It was legitimately that present. I don't quite understand that. Like, it sounds sort of basic. Why can't it sounds simple to me that you could just put that in on its own? Surely?
That hat was the present.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, there was that guy who said that he somehow found out that the thing that they added was a hat called the Jagged Bug Basher. So, yeah, it was that, and we're not getting. It was. I think it was supposed to just be added on Christmas Day, or actually today on the day of the nomination, or I guess on the day that the I don't know when the actual winners are announced. That's the thing. But that's all what it takes, and I guess that sort of nails in the logic there, which is what's it? So it does mean they haven't been nominated since we got the Baltic Marauder hat, and that's what the requirement is just that they get nominated. I don't know if it means if they win there'll be anything else. I hope so, but that's why I want them to win. So we can get the armor because they got it stored away somewhere. Barrel armor.
At chance, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they do deserve to win. They deserve to win every year, essentially, right? Like they've definitely the fact that they've been nominated. Like they've always should have been deserved to be nominated, but they definitely should have won by now, right?
Yeah, I think they deserve to win, and until they've won, and then it's like I don't think they necessarily need to win after that unless it's really deserved. Which honestly could end up shifting anyway. It could shift to Rogue Core deserving it instead, even at some point potentially.
Yeah.
But I think Deep Rock should win it at some point, and it's honestly, well, this is like a very actually appropriate sort of piece of what's going on right now in Deep Rock to lead into the actual topic, which is everything that's happened in 2023, or rather a review of this year. I don't know if we want to make any kind of judgments beforehand about where this year stands overall, because it's so interesting, and yet it hasn't been like, an actual good year for the game itself. For someone playing it, it's just objectively true, and I don't know. I think it just depends on how you categorize things. If you like literally just like as Deep Rock as an ongoing game and being someone who wants to play it, you could genuinely make the argument it's actually been the worst year so far. Like, I think you genuinely could. I think there's been a lot of there's been some really good stuff, I should say, not a lot. There's been...
I think on every metric you could easily say this is the worst year, right? Player numbers, I mean, I guess they're technically higher than they were when they launched, but they probably trended downwards overall, right?
Well, exactly.
Like,
That's how, like, even player
last
numbers,
year.
even if they're much higher than they were in 2019 and 18, it's like it's still a downward trend from previous. It's still a downgrade in some capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we basically need to start at the beginning, I think, which is honestly, it already is a bit of like the FOMO talk actually leads straight into this, because I forgot this happened, by the way. DRG Legacy Edition. Do you remember that?
Right.
Which I don't know what we have to say, because it's because the first big thing that happened this year was the 5th anniversary, which was genuinely a big deal.
So we're going like events then. Is this what we're going? Because
I think we're going to go in terms of major stuff, like no, we're not doing that though. We're not doing that specifically. What we're going to do is anniversary events in general, because this is kind of the year that all sort of came to fruition, I'd say. Like the holiday event, season 4, Brocore announcement, and the maintenance update. That's like that's the main checklist. So yeah, like the anniversary happened, and I think that was literally, there was a very general sense of excitement there, because it was just like, oh, we're doing all this stuff, and it's like, and we're going to talk about the future of Deep Rock. But that was one of those situations where it's like, that part of things was kind of immediately fairly bleak, because they revealed the roadmap and it was extremely basic, and it was like, I think I can't remember what it said. I think because what we were looking out for was like when season 4 was supposed to release. I remember this, and you said like, if it says Q3, I give up or something. Obviously, it was in Q2. It was like early Q2 at the start, but it was like still we still internalized that and realized that is like a pretty significant addition beyond 6 months from the previous season. So it was already kind of like a bad sign, and how simple the roadmap was and how little they had to say. But it was honestly, the anniversary itself was still kind of cool. You can almost treat that period, sort of the number of things they did around the anniversary event, that sort of total up to something you could compare to a maintenance update, to be honest, in a lot of different ways. One of them's the DLC, which is kind of like, that's not maintenance update content, but they also did like the promotion change was around that time as well. But yeah, I don't know why, but DLG Legacy's on my mind. But it's like a weird thing. It's DLG 2018. I believe it's like the first version of the game that was public, I'm pretty sure. So that's what it is. But it's not. I don't think it has a separate Steam chart, so we can't see how many people are playing it unless we can.
Still a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that was the point. Well, that's why I brought up the FOMO. It's like anti-FOMO. They eventually changed it because people just wanted it to stick around. But it's like, I want to know how justified that really was.
Yeah,
how many people are actually playing it?
Mention it.
I guess it could just be people just want to play it more. Like they knew they were going to play it for longer than they had. That could be what it is. DRG, Galactic. The open alpha apparently has 0 players. That's not what that is. So yeah, I don't think we can actually see DRG Legacy. No, doesn't look like it. Oh well, but that is something that happened. That was like basically one of the first things that happened in the year. But I'm not too bothered about that. I think we really need to focus on first, like the actual anniversary event, because of course it was the 5th anniversary, which is a milestone, obviously. Is it a milestone, or is it just something to note? Is it like a case of, oh, we've made it this far? Because is it inherently surprising? I think commemorating a 5th anniversary of anything makes sense, but I don't know if it's like, we made it, or it's just like, we're here now. I think it's more, to me, it's more so that, because it doesn't surprise me that we got to 5 years personally. So,
Yeah, I mean, the game was still like growing and being made at like 3 to 4, right? Like it was still like adding sizable chunks of the game, like for like 2 to 3 years in, and only then did it start like settling down a little bit. So you know, like the game's an adult now, right? I think it's in that phase of
legal.
like 5 years
What at
old.
5? What are you saying?
Yeah,
Fucking freaky.
yeah. Uh, yeah, it is adult. In the I don't know, it's what it is set in foundation, and it was like a year or so ago, I would say, but 5 years really kind of cements it. That
I would
yeah,
say
Deep Rock.
Deep Rock sort of got past puberty at like 1.0, but it wasn't actually an adult then. It sort of became an adult when we got season 1, I'd say, or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know. And then like I guess like update 32 went into new mission types. That was losing virginity or something. I don't know. And then
yeah, that was its growing up, and then it went on a spiritual journey and came back with season 1, and it's been doing that since, and now it's hitting a midlife crisis. Let's be honest.
I think the
It's,
midlife
it's
crisis is over, actually, because I think it knows. Like it's like the child has grown up, the child has had a midlife crisis, but now it knows what it's doing. Even if what it's doing is going to take a good amount of effort, it's like settled
I
into
don't know.
that.
I think we're
Settled into
still
that
in the
fact.
midlife crisis, considering currently Deep Rock, like someone in their midlife, is getting a new thing, right? Like buying a new car or getting a new hobby. It's now getting a new game. That's part of its midlife energy. And once that game's out, then I think the Deep Rock will retire probably. Actually, this might be more equivalent to having a child. Is probably a better way of putting
That's
it,
exactly
right?
what it is. That's exactly what it
Yeah.
is. They're still going to find time to do things for themselves,
But
and they
it's not going to be
will,
at the same rate.
and they will. They're very
And they
like
don't need to.
effusive about the fact that they're just not done with Deep Rock at all. I wouldn't say not even
Yeah,
slightly, but I would still say not at all. They're definitely not done, but I wouldn't say it's like, oh, we're gonna have like shitloads of content all the time. Absolutely not. But still, I think I mean, I think season 5 is gonna be best one in a while. But either way, the actual thing, what we should have probably started with was very small, by the way. But it was January this year is when they first started the Please Fix thing, the Please Fix partnership, that website where it's like the bug reporting thing.
right.
You know what that is, which is actually pretty important because that's basically like the maintenance update almost entirely came from that in a lot of ways. So all of the bug fixes, and it genuinely a useful tool. I mean, I did report a bug, but then I found out obviously that the one I reported was actually an intentional change. But even then, it was sort of a way of finding out something. I guess it was still a tool to be used, and so far it seems like it's worked as a tool for the people and for Ghost Ship to sort of figure things out better. Especially, I mean, it's kind of interesting that the most recent thing that happened though was them not being able to fix a bug. Because I feel like Please Fix is the kind of thing that should be like really useful for them to people to like report something and share. Like Please Fix like requires you to basically explain how it happened. You know, like exactly how it happened. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like kind of weird that they weren't able to fix it. It was still actually kind of cool to learn about how like if they can't recreate the bug, then there's actually like that makes it way harder to fix. Which is, but I assume it's just how it is for everything, like every game. You know, like, they have to be able to recreate the bug to be able to know what they're trying to fix. But honestly, I actually found all that kind of cool. But yeah, so Please Fix is a asset from here on, or has been since January, and that's that. Stick.
It will come back later with the maintenance update, obviously, since that was one of the main resources it used, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Precisely. Um, which is, I think, it's probably why the maintenance update was so well. Not necessarily why it was so good, but why it was so the way it was. It was basically just like just going down a list, basically, of just like
Yeah,
what
of
people
all
want.
what people wanted. Yeah, and because it literally was that. Unlike a certain other thing that we'll talk about.
Your
Um,
advent calendar. What are you doing?
I'm cashing in.
Put it down.
I haven't. I'm gonna eat all 23 days worth while we do this. It's just I'm
But
gonna
you
suckle
can't.
on the
You're
chocolate.
gonna make noise.
It doesn't pick up the rattling. Did you hear it?
I haven't. Should I have?
Oh yeah, and it was making tons of noise. Yeah,
All right then.
Discord is good like that. But,
Discord is good. OBS isn't.
yeah.
OBS / my mic / whatever setup I've got / the fact that I'm probably incompetent, which means there probably is a way to do it. Okay, so yeah, done. Please fix. Because the Lunar Festival thing, I guess there's like the fact that there was the bunny statue, and then we had we pontificated about the fact that it'll probably that event is going to be like defined by it's just going to be a different animal each year. But I guess we couldn't.
Yeah.
That's sort of just like that. But we also might get into it a little bit more when we actually talk about the events. But we were on the anniversary, and I think the main thing the two main things that come out on the anniversary directly were that promotion bug change, not promotion bug. Actually, no, it was a promotion bug. I always forget how it happened. I guess we'll start with that. Basically, what happened, and this is the most interesting thing about it, and I guess maybe some investigating is due, but as far as I know, it was never pinpointed how the bug was introduced, like what caused the bug. But basically around then, or basically maybe a week or a month before that, this thing cropped up where they couldn't. Well, when you promoted, it would reset. Yeah, it would reset the core hunt. It would reset both weekly assignments, but that doesn't matter. It reset the core hunt basically, so people could get more cores, and it was sort of just being, I guess, bandied about as like a very useful exploit. But it very quickly got to the point where it wasn't considered an exploit by the community, even though it was still a bug. Which is why when it was removed,
I think. Yeah, and it was the main thing that this bug allowed you to speed up the grind essentially in a way that the game never had or wanted before. Like you could only ever get, what was it? Like
I kind of know
9. That's right.
Yeah, 9 in
3 from the
total.
core hunt.
9 in total. 3 blanks. 3 weapons straight up. 3 cosmetics straight up. And I would say for most people, the blanks probably equals weapons. So I would assume weapon overclocks.
So you could get 6 weapon overclocks per week. That was a hard lock.
But
this
then also
bug,
1.9 Forge Mastery, basically. Like, it's like 1 and 4 segments. So you'd get 1, and it would be either a weapon or cosmetic. So that was adding to that as well. And that was speed. Obviously, it speeds that up as well. Even though I do think the Forge Mastery is something that still wasn't really considered by people when they were trying to figure out whether or not they thought the grind was reasonable. But basically, that sort of cropped up, but became internalized by the community as something that was basically a feature, or at least something you should definitely use. And it was just a source of relief, I feel like that's actually a key word. The fact that it was a relief to people, and that was really necessary to Ghost Ship's understanding the situation. That this was a situation where what they believed in did not align with what I think they want people to feel, which is they probably don't want players to feel relief when a system that they believe in. I think I fluffed the wording there, but basically, I think they don't want people to have to feel relieved when something that they made is alleviated or sort of made easier.
The bug is like a main feature that people like, but
that people need for it to feel
I don't know if we
good.
Need. I feel like I don't want to do a tally counter or something, but I would say, as far as my recollection goes, oh shit, blunders of the year. This is the first one. Patching this nerf, not nerf. What? Patching this bug.
Patching this nerf
it was a bug. Was Ghost Ship's first blunder of the year. Not because they patched it, but because they patched it with with nothing. Essentially, they didn't comment on it at all. They didn't hold it to any value. They didn't really establish anything. So as far as the community at wide was concerned, they just removed it, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think that's really emblematic though of the kind of state, not state used very neutrally. I don't mean state as in they were in a state, but I mean it's indicative of the state they were in, I think, at that time, which is a state of, I think, almost being choked up, like just not being able to almost not feeling like they can speak. You know, like we've actually heard from a couple of them about how it's like the seasons sort of brought with them this actual secrecy that was actually very frustrating. And I think that started to extend beyond that, and they sort of almost lost their way with how to actually like communicate things, like genuinely a little, maybe not to a huge degree, but also to a degree that was felt. Where I think under normal circumstances they would have addressed something like that, but they just didn't. They didn't understand until they saw the backlash. But obviously they corrected it in a way that was, in my opinion, they went too far though. Still, I really think it should have just been. Well, I'm of the position that what it should have done was like giving you the option between a cosmetic or a weapon for the class you promoted. That was sort of my position. Where they didn't need to go all the way and basically just have it so a promotion is equal to doing a core hunt, basically. Except you get it all at once.
Doing the core hunt.
Yeah. And obviously, I still think it is like a really good thing though in general, because I think the main source of relief came from it suddenly being a lot more within your control, basically. Obviously, you have to get a class 2 level 25 to do that, but that's more in your control than having to wait a week or however many days since you finished the assignment to get more of them.
It went from 9 overclocks, 6 weapon-specific overclocks, if you pick them, obviously, a week, ignoring the Forge Mastery, to however many you want, always reasonable / reasonable. You know?
Well, it's like even if you don't manage to actually get to a promotion, like get a dwarf to level 25 within a week, you still feel like you have more control. You still feel like your effort's being rewarded.
Next week you would probably finish it off, and that is now like, while the weeks didn't change originally, the average is still up. Basically, they up the speed. Retroactively, because I don't think we've looked back at this, I haven't heard anyone complaining about the overclock grind, right?
No.
And considering that was commonplace before all these changes.
Yeah.
Like, people used to complain about it constantly. And obviously skyrocketed when this incident occurred. But
it could be somewhat owed to not as many new players as well, but
maybe. But even old players were complaining about it, and they've shut up, right? Like, it seems that overall it was a good change, but oopsie 1x1, they patched it, didn't think anything of it. It seems. They mentioned it on some dev streams, which you obviously would have had to go out of your way to find, that they were talking about it and their situation with it. But there was radio silence until
2023 blunders.
All right, yeah. And then like maybe
this is mean.
Maybe
this is really mean. Like, that's inherently mean spirited.
I know, but this is going to be one. Yeah, this is going to be the second theme. Is redemption. When the anniversary stream was on, there was then the segment on the overclock fix, which obviously we just established, but like that was then huge, completely restored, if not like reinforced players loving them, right? Like,
yeah, and this, by the way, this is the key element of what I meant when I said you could compare the what happened around the anniversary to it almost being comparable to a maintenance update, because that is a maintenance update change / addition. That's exactly what it is. And I would even argue, like, in a sort of more pseudo way, so was DRG Legacy. It's kind of comparable to the season toggle a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was a fair amount of content that wasn't tied to a season.
Yeah.
Which,
and then in a roundabout way, I guess the DLC is weapon maintenance. I guess the DLC, if you really want to try and compare. Yeah. But yeah. And then if you actually had a point there, just about
my point is,
just talked about it, I guess.
They slipped up by a general lack of communication or feeling slightly out of touch, only to be hard redeemed in the soon future, right? Which is a common theme this year.
I'd rather have that. I think it would definitely be more, and I think it is true, but that is more so the theme. And I think I'd rather have that be the theme of this year rather than blundering. Which I don't think it is, by the way. I mean, because if I want to jump ahead, there was definitely a feeling like the general announcement of roll call being a blunder, which was almost immediately, certainly for us, pretty much immediately repaired by, like, maintenance updates specifically just being a thing. That's sort of jumping ahead though.
Yeah.
In a way
But
that we
even
probably
then,
shouldn't.
I mean, I think this is a more point I want to do overall. I would still say this year was more a blunder than the redemption, but I think if Let's Go Ship proves this year, when they blunder, they redeem themselves better than ever, even, which I'm hoping is next year. The redemption of not inherently even Ghost Ship, just Deep Rock, right? The rebirth of Deep Rock, and then obviously Rogue Core near the end of the year.
Well, I
It's
think
going
for
to
a lot
be
of reasons,
hopefully worth this year.
2024 will be objectively better than this year, and has like a very high chance of being better than the previous year as well.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it has a chance at almost matching 2021. I don't know. But the next thing, still apart, we're still stuck in this period of the anniversary. But it's obviously, although it was kind of weird. There was a lot of leaks happening around that time. I think you probably remember the anniversary stuff leaked itself. The anniversary framework leaked, but obviously the DLC framework leaked, and we didn't know exactly what that was at the time.
They actually leaked the framework, didn't they? A lot of other people were deep diving. Like a lot of people pulled the
skull, for example,
the skull flowing
very early.
Very early on. The clown mask, even like all these stuff. Like people pulled these really early on.
Do you remember seeing when we saw like a couple of weeks? I don't know how long before it was, but before the Halloween event, where we came across someone with the clown mask, and he had that made up. That. He also had that made up victory move.
Yeah, he has a victory move that literally doesn't exist.
I think I'm just still waiting. But it's like some weird. Even it's like I don't know where it comes from. It's something's wrong there. But either way, the leaks. Yeah, because we did do a podcast on the leaks like at the time, because that was like a thing that's happening.
Yeah, like I think, and this is because I don't know if we probably want to talk about it more when we talk about the events, but they added they proactively added a ton of event stuff at the beginning of the year. This is what these leaks proved. They had a bunch of stuff already there.
Because we can't run with stuff sometimes, and I think sometimes we shouldn't. But this is something where I think we were justified, because we did end up using that as a positive, or at least a sort of justification for how long season 4 was taking, and we were right to. Because that was just how it was. But obviously we'll get into that when we get to the events. But the leak stuff was like really weird. Obviously, like I said, the anniversary stuff leaked and the DLC framework leaked, because that was kind of the next thing, that we're getting not season 5, a 5th anniversary DLC. Which I think was only revealed to be supported to with the actual reveal itself, but I guessed that before, and it's also not like crazy. It's not like too important, but I guessed that it was going to be like a supported DLC, and it was obviously. It's like, so it's more expensive than normal, but not. It's more expensive than normal, and it's sort of like, I don't know if it's aside from it being intended to be a donation DLC, I don't inherently think it's justified, other than like, oh look, gold. I think if it was in a vacuum, making the DLC worth £12, or 12 quid, $15, whatever that is, that to me is like, there should have been like an armor set as well, but it's not. It's a donation piece, but also I still really wish they did that. Personally, I really wish they did. It was a cool helmet though. I'll give them that. The helmet was pretty cool, and the framework is pretty cool. And honestly, the stuff I use most though is the paint jobs from that DLC. Anyway, I think the paint jobs are actually genuinely really nice. It's not straightforward gold. I honestly think if they were going to do that, they probably would have done by now. But it's like this really nice, shiny, like brass and silver. And then the arm paint job is like this weird. It has that, but it also has like the black, like rose pattern.
Roses.
Like, yeah. So it was all pretty nice, and it was kind of just exciting to get the DLC itself. Obviously, they did something similar on the 3rd anniversary, but that was just straight up adding all the Scale Brigade stuff, which included an armor set, and it's sort of like, that sort of is a bit of a strange thing to me when you can like compare the two, and it's something that I genuinely don't know how to like feel about, because I have no problem with adding like a DLC that's just like clearly just like, you buy this to give us money, but it's still like a pretty cool thing on its own. But then last time they did something similar, they actually did more and it was free. So that's just like a thing. I don't know what that is.
Was it more? It wasn't more, was it?
It was more because it was a framework. I guess the difference is there wasn't a weapon paint job attached to Scale Brigade, but obviously you got the weapon framework, you got the armor sets, you got the armor paint job as well. Like having the armor sets in there was pretty important, I think, especially because they ended up. I think Scale Brigade is overall the best armor sets in the game. Overall, I think we agreed upon that. Yeah. But yeah, the supported DLC was still pretty cool just to get as like a thing, just as a reveal, I guess. Especially because they probably needed it because otherwise there would only have been one DLC this year, and that DLC is another blunder, if you recall.
One that they tried redeeming.
Well, yeah,
but that's for them.
Well, they did. No, they did. But it's still like you can still like debate how much it justifies being a DLC.
Yeah, but I think I remember the anniversary time was pretty fire, right? I mean that was a good time for Deep Rock this year, and
yeah. Aside from finding out, well, not finding out, but aside from because it's like it wasn't inherently bad at the time of seeing the roadmap, but it was sort of like after sort of registering, season 4 is going to be an 8-month gap between season 3 and 4 by the time we get it. I think it was sort of internalizing that was sort of what made it kind of what soured it a little bit, and it was like how vague the roadmap was. Although we did obviously pick up on the fact that it was hitting a very important thing, which was new enemy. Like it was still. I think it was still a very vague roadmap. But obviously, it had new enemies, and it specified that they were. It's yeah. Which is another thing to do with communication that has been. Should that be? This is like becoming weirdly. I wouldn't say competitive is the right word, but should that be a blunder? The fact that they didn't actually publish that roadmap properly, because I didn't shut up about it. If you were to ask me, I would say for sure that is a blunder.
Probably, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Let's just make this list as big as right.
Obviously, that's one that has a much later redemption though. That one.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, and it's
they posted this new roadmap, didn't they? Like multiple times.
Yeah, because it's very important as well, and it's also very comprehensive because it encompasses like a lot. Well, there was 2 roadmaps. Like there was actually a road core specific roadmap, and then just a general ghost ship roadmap almost. But yeah, what it told us, that season 4 roadmap, it at least told us that we were getting new enemies, new generic enemies, which is obviously it sounds good, a weird term, but it is the right term. These enemies that are in the general pool, they are, and
which is something we haven't had for a while, so it was exciting. Right?
Yeah, and it was like, well, it was just something I think at the time we almost saw it as one of the core pillars almost of things that you can do. That isn't like, I guess that isn't new like seasonal stuff. We put it in the actual. I think we ended up almost putting it in like the equipment slot or something. I think something stupid like that.
I don't know, just because it kind of was that. In all fairness, for this update, they didn't really do it. Like I don't know, it made the base game better, not including like the pocket stuff. It was just the general edition, but we didn't know what we had in store then. Obviously, we had no idea of the Stingtail nightmares we were that was on the distant horizon.
Yeah, well, obviously next came Easter, which was just like the only thing of note there was actually it getting its double performance point event, which was this bunny. I think wait, actually we could do events now. Actually, to be honest, because I mean this year, which means we it's not like we haven't been jumping ahead. Obviously, we've been keeping it brief when we do jump ahead, but this one we will need to jump ahead. This year, essentially, it's obviously a process that they started last year, but this year represents them like rounding up the events basically and having them all in this revamped position where they benefit the game as much as they can, I guess. And it started last year with them bringing back Oktoberfest and alongside it introducing the feature of these double performance point encounters, where during the event every mission would have something that you could retrieve, and that one was very basic. And I think obviously what we've learned so far is that the basic ones aren't going to change either. It's not like it was a placeholder. It's still just going to be the mug. But obviously, then we immediately got Christmas after that, which taught us that there could be more interesting ones. Like we had this elf that you have to kill, and obviously we had a lot of fun with the voice line about how it's not meant to be moving and things like that. So that was actually some nice stuff around then. And then obviously then there was Lunar Festival, and we talked about how it's going to be a different animal each year. And then, well, the things we saw the bunny early. So what got leaked was the bunny and the skull, Halloween, and so we at least have 3 different ones that all utilize basically just different movement. Was the idea? I mean, I think the skull, obviously there was something we didn't know about it even then, but yeah, it was interesting that they were willing to. All of them have kind of have something. I would say Oktoberfest is basically just Riding being the first one to introduce it, and the only one that really doesn't have anything to it is probably Summer, I guess. Then Summer's just the thing that Summer had was it being a ridiculous, massive on the map for some reason. Do you remember that? The float, it's like huge on the map for no good reason. But obviously, and then Lunar Festival, it would change each year, which I think is cool. Anniversary doesn't matter. It's just a trophy, and that's fine. But yeah, it was sort of Easter sort of was like the next one that added one of the ones that moves, and it was like a different movement. It's like jumps around. But yeah, and then you see Halloween. Halloween was cool actually, like the skull like freezing you. And then of course Oktoberfest didn't change. Christmas didn't change either. But obviously, and I guess we have to go from Christmas last year to Oktoberfest this year. So we got a like Christmas well, last Christmas they added quite a few extra things. But the main thing is sort of the outfit, and then Oktoberfest this year added an outfit. So beyond like the basic stuff they've done of bringing these all up to this particular level, I think we have this. I don't think it's a theory necessarily, but sort of this assumption that we're sort of making that there will probably be one of these outfit now after Oktoberfest, specifically outfits for like each event. They'll add some kind of extra thing that they're still sort of going through the motions of adding over time. Is sort of my read on the situation, which is fine. But aside from that, I guess what it's about is whether or not these events actually work for their intended purpose now, or their renewed intended purpose. Which is kind of a not touchy subject, but slightly awkward subject that sort of relates to how long seasons take, and sort of things like that. That's really what it's about now. Which is,
I mean,
I think calling it a touchy subject is appropriate. Actually,
yeah. I mean, have we actually got a statement from them saying like what their objective with it is, or is it more like our own?
It's us. It's us.
Yeah,
it's not them.
No. Us assuming what Ghost Ship thinks, we thought that they spent a lot of time and energy on the events at the beginning of this year, ending of last year.
Well, they did
because they knew that with the slowing down of seasons, which obviously has gotten even slower now, but they didn't know that then. We assumed that it was just kind of like to make the time between seasons more interesting by having the events be more substantial, right? I think that was our idea, and that's what we think they were doing. And if that is the case, the things are more substantial, but they're still not anything worth writing home about. Like, they're not, like, I'm not pulled to play the game any more than getting the new hat. Right, like that's really it. Like that's literally it. Really, like I don't think they do much more than that. Which I guess if that's all you need, if they just want every player to come back and get the hat, then that would work. Or maybe they're hoping on some players like falling back in love with the game during that brief period of time, then that could also work. But I don't know. I can't help but feel that maybe it wasn't the best shout overall. Right?
I think they actually, I think they affected this year, but I think well, going forward, they're not going to be. If anything is holding the game back going forward, it's not these events. But I would say
no.
It still kind of feels like an assumption, but I think it's fairly safe to say that they them doing this, spending the time on these events, did delay season 4 somewhat, and that in itself wasn't inherently great. Maybe
Yeah.
kind of bad in a way. So that's
Yeah.
probably the most awkward
And
thing
it's
about
why,
it.
yeah, I don't know. It's why I think, and might come back at the end. I feel like this year overall, if you were to delete this year but come out of it with the same stuff, it would be a pretty good result. But it's the fact that this year has been really lackluster because of it, and I think the events, like how big a role the events played on this year, proves how kind of lackluster this year has been. If you know what I mean, that like
In fact, it's
the
something that
events are one of the biggest deals.
well,
Like when we got grenades instead of guns, right? That
yeah,
it's like this is one of the biggest deals, but it's like they're not normally that big a deal, but but because of how little like other competition they have, like the events, I don't know, are one of the most substantial things we got this year. And going forward, I don't know, we seem to have more of a picture with the repeat of Oktoberfest and Christmas. It and Halloween kind of, but it's like while they have upped the ante with the events, they're also scaling back now. Like they're only adding one hat for events that always used to have two hats. There's only now one hat, and that's just something.
like,
Um,
we're
with
not in a
also-
position to complain about the lack of hats, though. Let's be honest.
No, we're not. But it's something I'm noting because they're doing the make a full set of armor stuff for like one thing a year. That's the current pattern, right? But it's gonna seem like other than that, everything's gonna get you like a single hat. It's gonna be more of a celebration that you were there for that event than like some more cosmetics. Is how I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
Like,
So obviously, it's not theory. It was a suggestion that the going forward, the performance passes need to be longer. So
oh yeah, I mean,
so obviously that's something to do with seasons, obviously specifically. But
Yeah.
if that were to be a thing that happened, would that make this? Would that make those events better? The holiday events. I mean, objectively it would, but like sort of like just from a general feeling perspective, would that make them more valuable?
yeah.
Yes.
'Cause-
Well, yes, it would.
Yeah, because like I think you got to think about it this way. When the seasons were 6 months long, you still had like what 3 events generally in each season that were
Hold on.
gonna like die.
We probably shouldn't do that. We probably shouldn't sit
No.
in silence like that. So we will. Where were we? Something about seasons being longer. I don't know if you remember. You were saying something.
Basically, if the seasons are longer,
Taking a lot of time.
wait, the
Remember.
opposite. With the seasons being the same, basically, there are a lot of events, more months than not, right? With an event in that will double your experience points for like 2 to 3 weeks, right? With that being the case, and now we're looking at a year for 100 levels, and it's just a bit silly. It is just a bit silly that a year-long pass is 100 tiers, which in and of itself, the 100 tiers was designed for 4 to 6 month seasons, right? Let's get that.
Okay, so this is something that we don't inherently. Well, like I said, that's true, but we don't inherently know how true the season's going to take a year every time. We don't know how true that is, but we do know. We do know that from season 4 to 5, it's a year. We know that obviously. Yeah. So there's that at least.
And it really, I mean, with roll call coming out in November next year, we're not getting season 6 next year either, right? So like,
yeah, that's like whenever that is, it's not in 2024. It's in 2025.
It's probably going to be past. It's going to be like 7 months plus, right? So it might as well go to be a year again as well. Plus, they are going to be still working on roll call. It's not like once they make it, they're going to stop working on it. It's going to be a still constant thing. It just won't take as much resources, I assume. So Deep Rock will still be worked on less. So at this point in time, just I don't know. Yeah, once per year it seems reasonable to assume at this point. Um, but with that being said, with 100 tiers, it's already a bit. People are going to get through that within a month.
Yeah,
they
I
already
mean,
do.
I think there's like the very basic idea of like just you've got more. The assumption is they will at least have somewhat more time per season than usual. It still won't be proportionally like better. It will still be proportionally less
Yeah.
overall, but it might still be because of how long it's going to take in between each. But it's still probably going to have more time. Like, hopefully, they'll have more time on season 5 than like season 4, for example. And it's like there's like the basic idea of like make some more stuff to make it longer, right?
Yeah.
Which is obviously like, okay, they could do that. It could just do like that'd be a lot more work though, which is fine, I think. But I think there's still like lots of, and I think they should do that. I still think there's really smart things they can do though. Like I think the idea of having the parts be much longer, but in the sense of it still kind of finishes at 100, but there's like things like placed at certain other levels, like at 150 and 200, like these sort of more high tier things that could. And the thing is, I know that like they're like, oh, but we want things to be accessible. It's like
But it doesn't matter.
it's time
But
to start
first of all,
walking back certain things. It's time, like
They-
what I'm talking about is like things that you get at like level 150 or 200, and then once the season's over, where do they go? They go into the shop, but they cost 1 million credits or something. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that's something that you really need to keep in mind, or that they need to keep in mind is more accurate. That they can literally add something at level 1,000 on the pass, and it's still not too unreasonable because it will be added to the normal pool come, the next season. Obviously, 1,000 is ridiculous. That is too far. Although I don't doubt people would be able to achieve that with the year and all of the double XPs.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might be my general biggest problem with, because honestly, something that continually keeps us not necessarily on their side, but just keeps us going as being like essentially fans of them is just their principles being so great. But this is one thing I fundamentally will always have a problem with them on until they do something in this sort of territory. Is just their complete refusal to do even little things for like really long term like rewards and things like that, even just small stuff. They just don't seem to want to make any time for it, and I think it's fundamentally wrong. And that's what I want to see going forward. Like they have the I think they both have the they have the means. They've always had the means, but I think more so than ever they have the impetus to do something like that, because we need to see more dynamic changes like that made to Deep Rock's like design, like things like, especially because it's a game that relies on like a satisfying gameplay loop. It makes it inherently more satisfying when you have something to work towards, and it's a lot easier to put something that's very far away rather than trying to, because if they try to get to level 200 just by making more stuff, that's going to be way more taxing than just putting one thing there that will get thousands of people to work towards getting to level 200. You know, it would work.
But the thing is I agree with you. But in that specific example, I think 200 should be the normal amount per year, and then they should put like a random thing for 300, 400, 500. I think something like that. Like, just like I don't know. I think they need to relook at the seasons, and obviously they wouldn't do it this time around. They wouldn't do it now. Now they're on holiday, but for season 5, I hope that the pass looks like a pass that will last us a year, because it probably will. And if they pretend that it's going to continue, like if it looks the same as it does this year, then it's just like, oh, this pass isn't enough. With that being said, I still haven't finished the pass, right?
But that's for a different reason. That's not exactly the same, you know.
Like, I don't know. It's just that like there is literally zero harm in adding like long-termish content and preferably they would add more in the earlier stages still, like within the 200 areas, because it's going to last double the time they built it for, with double XP being spread across. But then after that, just add, I don't know, it is something that, with the events bringing it back to the events, is something that they really kind of need to do. Like before, it wasn't a need. Like not many people still would have reached 100, but with the double experience points, like just do all the assignments, which there are a lot of them now. You're gonna get like 5 tiers in the past. Just
Yeah, it
within,
was
like, a
like
couple games.
it was very short lived actually having them be 6 months, like a 6 month gap, but it very quickly became like a case of that's actually very reasonable. Because it was like you could very easily like not like you didn't have to like try and be like really careful about how you played the game to make it last long enough. And but the point is, the pass, if you play regularly, it doesn't last 6 months. It doesn't. It's way shorter than that anyway, and that's how it's kind of always going to be unless you can't actually make that amount of content for like enough tiers to last a year or 6 months. You have to do something like what we just said. Yeah. But the point is, you could still reasonably have it last 2 to 3 months. That's like enough. Take a break, and then honestly, like in about a month or so, you'll start seeing stuff that gets you back into the headspace of Deep Rock, because suddenly the next season is being teased after about 4 months. You know, so it's like it was actually worked as it was very short lived, but it actually worked as like a cycle. Obviously that's completely evaporated, which is why it's kind of like, and we're still on the topic of events just about. It's kind of just objectively the case now. Now you've actually rounded out the events so that there are more than ever. By the way, because last year, 2022, that's when they first added the summer event, and it's also when they brought back Oktoberfest, which is also now a staple. So there are more of these events than ever. They all have a way of earning double performance points, and we know that seasons will be longer than they have been, at least, even if it's not a year. They will be longer than they have been. So it's just like, combine those two things. That can't go that can't go under. You know, that can't be lost. That concept needs to be pinned down by Ghost Ship as a concept, like where the crossover of those two things, the fact seasons getting longer and having so many events with double performance points, there needs to be an intersection there where they address it as its own individual point, like that being a weird thing, and how it's going to be addressed, whether that's by seasons having longer performance policies or some other like incentive that makes it make sense, because otherwise it wasn't a worthy use of their time. We want to make sure the events were, we want to make sure that was a good idea. That's what we're getting at.
Yeah, because ultimately, you know, if you breeze through it so quickly, it makes the event worthless, right? If you already level 100, there's no point in the double XP. It's still it's worthless. And so I don't know. It's just, it's currently a flawed system, which I think they hope they'll address.
Yeah. Yeah, even something small. Okay, I want more than this, but you could even have something like, that sounds greedy, but you know, like even something like just having a display of what level you got to on a performance pass is something. That's like a stat that should be tracked, like even if it's just in your personal terminal, just so you can look at it and remember. Because I don't remember where I got to. I think I got to over 300 on the last one, but I don't know what the actual number was. So, and I'd like to know.
Yeah.
I'd like to...
You got to screenshot it yourself at this point, right?
I guess you would have to. Yeah. But you know,
Ghost
I
Ship
think Deep Rock, something that defines Deep Rock, even without them almost intending to, is that you are role playing as someone with a career, and I think having that career reflected in game is like kind of just an interesting thing that they could have if they actually like put some time to it. Like you can almost role play as a dwarf worker having this really impressive career. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that could actually be integrated with like some really interesting mechanics. I think it already has been. I think a lot of the stuff in game reflects that. But it's usually just like reflected in the sense of like voice lines and things, you know, like promotions obviously becoming meaningless after a certain point, but it's still like your guy is still like, you know, he's like crying because he's got his promotion, like things like that. It's just like that's obviously role playing, but it kind of loses value because we don't have more promotions than Legendary 3, which we're not going to do that. They should do that, but we're not going to get into that right now. But still, I think we're done with events, though. I think, sure.
Yeah.
Because we've got to get on to season 4.
Hmm.
Well, I would say that's like, the monster of the year, but the problem is that it's not. I think, maybe. Probably. Partially.
Well,
Maybe.
it was the season of the year. It was the one thing we could have expected going into this year, right? Like we knew that we were gonna get season 4, right? Essentially, like technically we didn't know it, but like we had season 3 last year. Season 4 is the next logical guess. Everything else we could never have imagined, really.
Yeah.
Like the maintenance patches and the anniversary event, we could have assumed, but what was in it, not really. Like all that stuff.
Well, that's why when we got to the point of, I think just before the big live stream was announced, the On the Horizons live stream, when we got to that point and we still didn't have anything on season 5, it was getting to the point where there's like this genuine, not like actual, not physical, right? Not real world, but in the vacuum of thinking and talking about Deep Rock, this genuine terror of season 4 being the only update of the year, and how genuinely catastrophic that would have been. Actually would have been terrible. Not that there aren't good things in season 4, but do we want to make this judgment that it's the worst season? Do we want to do that? Because I think you think
Easily.
that. Easily.
It is. Easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, first of all, first and second season easily answers it. All the weapons.
Yeah, it's
Literally,
really it's unfair, but it's also like the facts. It's also the facts.
Yeah, weapons alone completely counts as it. Not to mention that Rivals, new game mode, all of that really cool. Like boom, easy season 1, season 2 counts as it in the water. Season 3 is where it gets a bit iffy, but even then, season 3 had the grenades, which I mean, yay, but and the game mode, or not game mode, the warning.
Well, it's like half and half, isn't it?
Yeah. I think season 3 was definitely a sign of what's to come, with them having a warning that was closer to a game mode, where they were kind of mixing things up in terms of the way the content is given.
There's almost like a progress towards sort of whatever the hell season 4 is supposed to be, that you can track from season 2, whereas like season 3 matched season 2 in terms of like fitting the formula, right? But it still felt directionless, because it's like they've sort of done this weird sort of pseudo mission type inside of a warning without really having it be treated any differently. Like we came up with this idea of like a new type of mutator, which I still think probably isn't going to happen now, but I think it should have done at the time. But it's like and then just grenades, because it's like the next logical step, I guess. And then, but also, and you also like a really good event, but it was also disconnected from the actual theme in a lot of ways. And it's like it fit the formula, but it was also kind of directionless.
And then the enemies were faked.
Season 4 almost doubled down on that, in that season 4 didn't fit what any of the previous seasons had been, really, and also was completely scatterbrained at the same time. It was just completely scattered. I don't think it was rushed, but I also don't think they gave themselves time to plan it either. I think they rushed. I think they rushed into developing it. I think
you've got to admit the similarities between it and the maintenance update, right? In how they kind of just added stuff.
But the problem is season 4
very heavily different.
Season 4 just didn't put any of its season 4 genuinely has a problem of it's an interesting twofold problem, because there's sort of two sides to it, and they're both sort of you both think both of these sides should probably have been approached differently depending on what they did. But the problem is it didn't dedicate itself to something and really go in on it at all. The best thing it did, I guess, in terms of that, is just focusing on fleshing out the rockpox as an enemy like species.
Yeah,
Um,
but in that, I need to add the caveat: the only reason they had to do that because they didn't do that in season 3, right?
yeah,
Like they didn't add the rock pox fully, and I think you can't say the same for rivals, right? You can't, even though technically the nemesis wasn't there at the beginning. I don't think they intended for the nemesis to be there from the beginning, right? I think the rock pox situation, they just added the bare bone rock box in season 3 and then added the rest in season 4. Like, I think that's more the equivalent of what occurred there. um
yeah.
and I don't know, it was not good. Like, it just wasn't what anyone wanted.
Yeah, because
I think that
when you put a lot of effort into something, even if it's not inherently what everyone was asking for, it's still, as long as it's good, it still immediately sort of acquires this like a status of like, oh, this actually feels like it was worth doing. But the problem with season 4, it was all a bunch of smaller things that no one asked for. It was a lot of different things, and none of them were really what the game needed. You know,
which is what
because like
why I'm
when you
kind of
put
comparing it to the
all your
maintenance
effort
pack.
into one big thing, even if people weren't really asking for it, it can become something that people think was worth adding. But when it's a bunch of small stuff that wasn't asked for, none of it really
I think,
rises. None of it gains a
and
status. You know.
I think you've definitely. I think you just go through the very, very, very quick list. Randomizer. Who uses a randomizer? Right. Rocket boots. How often do you find rocket boots?
I
Right.
found them the other day. I mean,
Yeah, there were
rocket
nights
boots.
when you find them. And then the corruptor is an event, so it is therefore it's just an event, right? It give or
Yeah, I
take
mean that
whatever.
was already a bad
Um,
sign. Like when we got I guess when we saw the trailer, I guess which kind of revealed. Like I remember, I was on holiday when the trailer dropped, and I think when we came back, when I came back and we first talked about it, we were actually weirdly optimistic. I think so. That was
yeah,
actually, I think all of that stuff sounded actually pretty good. And
yeah,
we were
and then we
weirdly
go,
on season 4. We were on season 4 side for a weirdly long time. I think
yeah,
it was actually
because
it was
we're
weird for
Xbox and
us to
we
have
were
been
a
with it for
week
so
behind.
long. Maybe,
Like, because
but
it
probably,
took us longer than everyone else to start playing it, and then you realize that
how
in
flat it is.
concept. Yeah, like we watched, I think it was like the Access Chronos video where he talks about the seasonal content and how that it's not all that, and we're like, what do you mean it's not all that? Look at it, like that's like a new drink, a new tool, like it's essentially a new type of tool. Like it's really interesting what they were doing here, and then you play it and you realize, oh, it doesn't feel like anything. It genuinely, it barely feels like they added anything to the game. I'm thinking about it, right? You don't use randomizer. You can't guarantee finding like the rocket boots. Um, Everything else you would have to opt in. You'd have to go into the rock box for. What else did they do? Saveless, right? I guess.
Well, that's the thing
Like
about season 4.
genuinely,
Like, obviously, oh god. Okay, so horribly long waits aside. In a vacuum, season
yeah,
4 had some cool stuff that was like, it was like it's the kind of thing that we would expect from a maintenance update now, though, isn't it? It's like,
exactly. That is
but
what
that's
I'm
all the
trying
good
to say.
stuff. I
Maintenance,
think, yeah, the
like,
sleeveless armor was cool. Like, so, like the tweaks to sort of like the randomization, like adding like being able to randomize loadouts, and also the undo for like the randomizer button on both wardrobe and loadouts. These are like
you
great
can't sit
things.
there and not
They didn't
say
even
that.
think. Okay, I'm not going to put this down as a blunder, but this is another problem that is just been very not consistent, but it has been recurring. Which I know they're kind of almost the same thing, but it's them sometimes actually not communicating the. Actually, we'll get to that. That was one of the biggest blunders actually, and it's a blunder that's around one of the biggest good things that happened. I think you're gonna know what I'm talking about when I say the words. They sometimes forget to communicate things that they should communicate, like things that
Yeah,
they could
yeah,
say, but for some reason they didn't. And I think this is a really small one, but in season 4, it wasn't in the patch notes that they added that undo button. Yeah, I think that was a really nice quality of life addition. Like
yeah.
so, like so it means
Like,
you can randomize your loadout and not worry about it. It's like, oh well, what if I
yeah.
hate what I get? It's like, doesn't matter. Bring it back.
I think, yeah, I think you really got to, like, because this is literally something I've just put together now. It really, really is like season 4 was just a maintenance patch, but bigger and for stuff that people didn't ask for. Like that, I think
Yeah.
is genuinely the main thing, because that, and then this is actually example of one thing that people did ask for: the copy and paste loadouts or randomizing loadouts. Right, that screams maintenance patch now, doesn't it? Right.
Yeah,
Like if we had
exactly.
gotten that in this maintenance patch, that would have been like, yeah, that makes sense, right? It's that kind of quick, like seemingly quick, easy content that people want, right? And that's basically what that's what season 4 was. It was just a ton of, well, not a ton, but like, you know, a large pot of random
Also,
shit
I don't know if
that
you
they
just
felt
said
like
it
adding.
because we've been talking about randomization, but they said the copy and pasting loadouts.
Yeah, copy and pasting loadouts, which I think, while sounding cool, I've yet to use. It's just sometimes I've accidentally almost used it by clicking on the wrong part. Um, I'm it's yet to be that useful, because I think they should have added more loadouts. But the I don't know, the bloody, I don't know, man. It's literally, it is just
Sorry, I've got
it was a
to help
blunder.
my stupid family who can't hear that the door someone's knocking at the door.
I think first, mark season 4, or mark a blunder. Season 4 was a blunder. It ultimately, like, everything people feared seasons were becoming, it became, right? If not worse. Like it was undeniably the worst thing Ghost Ship has done, right? Like, yeah, like actually done, like not done. Like, they sometimes don't do things that really we wish they would do, but like, this is the worst thing they have ever actively
Yeah,
added
I
to the
remember
game.
getting it. It was like pretty down to the wire. It was like, we were getting very close to when we were expecting the whole thing to be revealed, and we were like, we don't really have an idea of what like the main content's going to be. The main content
Yeah,
that we're going to get. And so we came to the
yeah,
conclusion,
the
oh, it's probably going
teasers.
to be based on what we're seeing. I feel like if a new biome would be very hard to hide, so probably it's probably gonna be a new mission type with this boss involved. Like we came to that conclusion after we saw the silhouette of the corruptor, um,
Yeah.
and it was like that it would use like the rocket boots in the mission as well, or something like that. Because it was just a natural assumption because that was the standard that had
We
been
thought
set.
they were doing
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
But no, yeah, it was just an event. Like, yeah, I don't know. It was not great. It was not a great thing to have occur. And yeah, the I think the
it was. It wasn't.
retroactively,
It wasn't wrong either. Like
the
it's not wrong to say because like when it was as soon as we saw they kept the fact that it was Rockbox still was kept quite close to the
silent.
chest for a while.
And
The key art was
yeah,
when we got that, and that was weird. Like the teasers for season 4 were strange because everything we saw just like
it was
then
just
it built up to being something else. We just assumed that it was a different theme because that's how it felt.
yeah,
We
because
started to come to the
they had
conclusion that
so
it was like a
little to
theme
tease.
of surveillance or something, of like recording like new
Yeah,
creatures or something. It's like because cameras were
yeah,
like involved so much for some reason, and there's like
yeah.
that marketing was weird as hell. Marketing.
Yeah. But and honestly, it was like substance over, like, anything, because like the three of them were like the Jetty Boot teaser. I swear.
You mean
Like,
style
like
over
sure, yeah. Like
the
literally, it was
substance
like
is
we
what we want.
saw the box, we saw like the arcade machine in the thing, then we saw like the part of the rig where the arcade was going, and it's literally like almost half, I think, of the things were just the Jetty Boot arcade in in the goddamn the like hub, and it's at that point it's like, Jesus Christ, like,
Yeah, wasn't
what
it
are
like
you even
it's like
adding at
I'm
this
pretty
point?
sure it was at least well certainly
It was at least
two of
three.
well I don't think it was at least three. I think it was the fact that there were certain like definitively two of those were just
The arcade
dedicated
in the
to
box, the arcade game next to the terminal, and then when they were teasing the extra area to the actual like bar, right? I would count all three of those to be towards
yes,
Jetty Boots in the arcade area,
yes.
being building towards that.
Although that was
And
one
it's
of the
then
good
like,
things, I'll admit the
yeah,
J Boot
it was,
arcade machine was it's genuinely a good thing that we have now. I'll say that at least it's good that we
Yeah.
have it now. It works.
Yeah, but ultimately, Harry, it's like adding the football game.
But
Like,
it's better than the football game though. It's just because it's more like
yeah,
it's
but it
it's
feels the same
more
role.
inherently engaging. You know, no one wants
Yeah,
to set
but it
up for the
feels the same
football.
role.
I know, I know.
So that's like I don't know. Since when was that one of the biggest and best things you get in an update?
Not
Right?
biggest. I
Season
never said
4
biggest.
is when.
Season 4 is
Well,
yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of
That's
is.
kind of yeah.
The minigame that it is Jetty Boots, which was like the equipment thing, and I don't know.
And then there's the DLC.
Do you want me to say what I think about it?
London.
Um,
What do you think about it?
it sucked in the first place, which was blunder one. But then they realized they had blundered, so they came back to make it look better, and they did that, but it still sucks. It still doesn't look that good.
It's kind of
It's still notably worse than most. Like it is a framework from the past, not DLC. Right? That's
and also
simply the
none of those
situation.
paint jobs are like of much value, really. And then they're not DLC paint jobs either. I think the frameworks are. I like them actually quite a bit, like genuinely. But that doesn't change my like. It sucks. Like, this is something that also people can't really fight us on. This happened. They literally buffed the DLC because people were just like, this is just not it. Not like, oh, these are like shit. It's like, this is just not that great. This is just boring.
DLC.
It's just it's just not DLC. This is not what we paid for.
They then were like, yeah, you're right.
This is fine. It's like the deal. This is fine. It's like the season framework, straight up. But
I think it would have been, but it's DLC, so it's higher standard, and they did improve it. But personally, I still think it's not that great. Compare it to Rival Rebellion, right? I think that's the main thing you got to look at.
Yeah, which one? Wait, hold on. Which one are you talking about? Because obviously this is a framework pack. Rival Tech was a framework. Pack. Rival Tech. Yeah.
Compare the two. And you're trying to tell me that they're worth the same amount.
Combined with that, like that's obviously season 1's DLC. Season 1's, free framework was the Waster one, which paired with the Robot Rebellion armor, and that's one of the best frameworks. And obviously that's something that season 4. We're not gonna. That's not going to be an additional thing, but season 4's framework. I'm talking about the effective.
Yeah, exactly. Season 4 didn't give any good frameworks. that's another thing I'm not a huge fan of. And cosmetic wise, generally it's not been that great. Obviously, I haven't quite finished it yet, but
shut up. We've got purple armor. Purple armor.
I guess purple armor.
Shut your whore mouse.
They cashed in.
Blue hair.
But, obviously, I feel like we I don't know if we do. You might have been doing it constantly, but I just forgot. But I was like trying to think like, but why aren't like I forgot why people aren't so mad about season 4, and then I just remembered. Oh yeah, the weapon changes, right? That was a redemption.
It actually was. It genuinely was. It was. I don't know what because right. I know what it was. I know what it was actually. Now I think about it, it's the fact that. Yeah, okay, so this is just it all just piles up to season 4. It all just piles up to season 4 just being kind of pathetic because it's like on launch it was only gonna have just the Sabata rework or the Sabata overhaul.
Yeah.
That's it. But then all of a sudden Mike whipped his dick out, slammed it on the table, we were like, oh, that's such lovely penis you have. And no, he just started going nuts in like during the experimental branch. He just started making these overclock changes. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing, Mike? This is sick. Because all of them were. Yeah. It was simple as that. Not literally the most insane thing we've ever seen, but also definitely the craziest weapon balance changes we've seen. Maybe. So there's also that. It was just a bunch of
awesome, one of the worst cleans into the game into a slightly unstable, right?
Yeah.
Never before has that been done. Right.
Yeah, and also just fixing so much stuff as well, like making plasma bursters pretty much as good as they were when they were good, things like that. Like spinning death buffing Carpet Bomber, nerfing Neurotoxin, which was considered a good thing as well. There's so much stuff in there that was just like, whoa, this is lit. And yeah, it was genuinely good. That was the stuff that gave us the most, that gave it the most like value. That season 4.
Yeah. Like that was the thing people wanted to do, right? They logged in to test out the new Sabata, to test out the new double barrel. They didn't really log in to test anything else out, either because they didn't really care or because you couldn't voluntarily do it, right?
Yeah, except
and then with the only other thing,
it's just like, yeah, you can fight some of the new Rockbox enemies by like playing a lift phase outbreak, but it's like lift phase outbreaks being the thing we've been saddled with for the past 8 months anyway, as well.
Yeah. And realistically, all 4 of the Rockbox like new enemies, I think it was 4, but Exploder,
Spitter, Breeder, and Bomber.
Breeder.
Yeah, Breeder.
Yeah, all 4 of those equal less than one of the ones they added to the normal game mode. It's a Septic Spreader, I would say. They mean significantly less to the overall experience of the game. My laptop's low. So
yeah, I mean, I want to reiterate the thing about the Breeder too. If you're playing a lift phase outbreak, I don't want to see a single normal Breeder. Like, fuck that. Like, most of them were, you know. Every time we would play the phage outbreak, we would find a Breeder to like, is it Rockbox or not? Of course it's not, because they're stupidly rare even then. And it's not like they're hard either. I like the Rockbox Breeders. I think they look pretty cool as well. And it's just like, you know, I guess I thought it was cool when they added Rockbox swarms to normal missions, but obviously even that's like not that many things. And obviously the whole thing from season 3 reeked of a lack of confidence in the Rockbox, even though they were just variants of pre-existing enemies. Even then, they didn't want to put them in like the new event or events, you know.
Yeah.
Like the Meteorite was just the Meteorite is a good event, but it's not a good like seasonal event. You know, it doesn't play into the Rockbox at all. It's just a better version of the hacking pod. That's all it was. And then obviously
it's good.
Harold is interesting. But also I don't know what to say. Actually, I don't know what to say about Harold. Actually, Harold is I think actually having specific gameplay for an event is actually a fine like idea. Having to use the cleaning tools to combat. Yeah,
I think he was an event. But I think you've got to bear in mind that, like, on seasons with a lot more general other stuff, the event is never really the best thing. And sometimes, 2 out of 4 times, or 2 out of 3 times before this update, you get 2 events, right? So we got 1 event that fulfilled its purpose, and that was about it. Like, in, like, the pre-established, like, content.
Yeah, and it's just like the fact that the event of the season was that was like propped up as like the biggest piece of new content. It's just like, not only did it not work because it's like a random encountered event and it's actually quite rare. So that's not it. That's literally just not it. It's just whack. It's not what you want for like your main bit of content from what's supposed to be a big update. It's supposed to be, and it should bring something like that with it. And I'll get into that actually when we get to the end. But honestly, I think we're in a position to possibly move on from season 4. Actually,
yeah. I mean, we didn't mention the Stingtail or Spreader though, and
we didn't mention we didn't mention a W, which was Journey of the Prospector. Not the biggest W in the world, but they did add a new song.
It didn't play for ages, and then they added it, and now whenever it does play, it's the only thing that plays for like the whole mission. But yeah, we got a new song, but unfortunately, it's because Charles left. So you know, it's like, how much of a win is that? You know.
Well, so far I wouldn't say it's been like an L.
Yeah.
It would have been cool if he stayed, but I think the new guy's perfect. Well, I guess.
But yeah, I don't know. It's the
it's
the worst
Eye of the Spider
update we ever really had. I can't think of anything else really.
Worst update. God, is it? Is it?
Well, think of what else would it be?
I don't know.
Like the early ones added incredibly fundamental stuff to the game. Then the middle ones added like substantial other random bullshit, like the core lock or some random like smeg like that. Like then obviously you
Meg.
had the peak that was like the 31, 32 or so, wasn't it? Like
Yep.
those updates.
Yeah.
And then like season 1, 2, new sets of weapons. And, like I don't know, it's genuinely because they're so fucking good that there's never really been a bad update until now. And even then there's a lot of good stuff that came from it, but
Yeah, and it's
ultimately
kind of just like it's just
worst of the
surrounded by other things sort of going on, I guess. Like I I really don't have it in me
plus it
to
took
pretend
long, like really
look,
long.
I don't look. I don't believe that Ghost Ship Publishing didn't do anything, because I think that definitely did. That's because what it did objectively is take up attention of Mikkel and Soren. More so Soren, but still Mikkel, and Mikkel is the game director, and it's just
Yeah.
objectively. I don't believe that Ghost Ship Publishing being a thing didn't have an effect, because it definitely did. And even it's sort of surrounded by. I don't think they started making it yet, but I think it's still surrounded by the plan to start making a deal, like a paid expansion for Deep Rock that would have been Rogue Core, or is now Rogue Core. I think they were still, planning that by the time season 4 was, coming out, and then obviously season 4 was also preceded by them sort of doing all this work on events that kind of put them into a position. So season 4. The reason why I don't want to say it was rushed is because it was like late, but it might still have been rushed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but if not rushed, it just at least I don't know. It felt directionless. Like it really felt like they had to finish off rock pox from the last season, but people don't really like the rock pox. So what the fuck are we meant to do? Like it was like we can't really just add. We run out of equipment to add because what's after the grenades? Oh, equipment, but we don't add any of that because we're douchebags. But like it was just I don't
What the
know.
hell was that? Can't say that.
Yeah, but no, it just felt like they were out of ideas. Generally,
Yeah.
like they didn't know where to take seasons, and so they just went and added a bunch of random stuff, and it went about as poorly as you would imagine if that was what they went into it thinking. And that is why, moving forward, things started looking different, which which I think is that what's the next significant thing then really.
Yeah, it's well, what's next is so okay, yeah, the first Below Decks post was actually before they announced that big live stream. So Below Decks kind of came out of nowhere. Although the first one was just sort of this. Obviously, we know what the first one was. It was just about sausage hats, but still, it was like this test, essentially a test pilot for this new sort of type of post from Aaron, who is going to be an instrumental member of the team going forward, and already has been, I would say. Yeah, we got this Below Decks thing, but I think we can probably gloss over that one, because I think it's really just like that live stream. The announcement of that live stream was the next thing that sort of put us in a position where we would try to figure out where things were going. And I'm literally talking about the announcement of the live stream. It's like it says like, what does it say? News about future plans. What? Hold on.
Was it on the horizon?
It's called On the Horizons, the On the Horizon stream, and it basically just said, I just reading like the schedule. It just said, news about future plans for Deep Rock and what we've been up to at Ghost Ship Games, and it's just like, I think
yeah,
I think we already I don't think we made an assumption, but we started sort of theorizing, especially about like the lack of news on season 5, that there was going to be like there was a chance, a pretty high chance even, of some kind of something else announced. Like, we had the inkling that of a chance maybe of a different kind of update. I think that is what we were kind of going for.
On the dev streams beforehand, they mentioned this was like a month or so beforehand. They mentioned that something big was coming. Basically, like they were alluding to I don't know, something big. And people were like, what do they mean by that? Right? Not many people knew about it, but it's like, okay, what's all this then? And so then we see, a stream coming up, which is really close to when we would start expecting teasers for the next season, right? Realistically, about this time, we should start to hear about the next season. And then there's a stream. All of them. It's like, okay. And the stream is mostly about the publishing stuff. So, people check in on all that. And then you get to the part where it talks about DRG. Little did the community know it was not about Deep Rock Galactic the game, right? Except if you're referring to what the only thing referring to Deep Rock Galactic the game was about is that season 5 is delayed until next year. Like the thing that everyone tuned in for, the game that they are playing, the only thing they got for it in that stream is just astoundingly bad news. Like it being delayed to a year long. Which is why London number whatever it is now, slip that down.
Well, it's only 5 actually. Somehow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so yes, the announcement of Road Core. Right. So this is the next thing. It happened. I remember when I watched it. Actually, what I did, I was watching it on the bus on my phone.
Yeah, you were.
And I tuned in about halfway through the actual announcement. I saw that screenshot of like the design of like the upgrade menu is what it was, and I thought, oh, perk rework. Foolish me. I went back like 5 minutes or actually I went back about 20 minutes. I worked my way towards it so I could make sure I didn't see any more of that actual thing. And then it started, and they said like play the trailer, and I thought, right, season 5 trailer, good, okay, that's cool. The first thing of season 5 we get is a trailer, and even when Road Core showed up, I was like, I'm still not sensing anything like I don't like yet. Whatever Road Core actually is, nothing about this says like, nothing about this is bad news yet. And then it's like, it's a new game. Like, okay. Oh, that's kind of the process. So new game, not inherently bad, but it is when you think about it for more than a second. If you, well, yeah, I mean, this Ghost Ship, they're still barely expanding, and they're trying to make a new game as well. Yeah. It's just like, this is obviously going to spell some bad things. It's just like, then they get the question from the audience about what's going on with season 5 to get them to talk about it. That's true, yeah. I'm actually gonna. So I have to immediately put this down as the next blunder, which is just the really, and I think this is we've been through this before. Genuinely, obviously, it's really ironic that it's supposed to represent this shift now into them being better at communicating, which has been marked. It hasn't been I don't think they've quite gotten there yet, but that stream, their communication on the level of what's actually going on with Deep Rock was fucking abysmal.
It was horrendous.
I'm sorry. And if you deny this, you're just a stupid fucking moron, because they have
never felt in touch with the community than that stream.
It felt so out. They were more in touch than they were. Is the point? What they're actually doing, the actual plans for Deep Rock are more in touch than anyone realized. Even them, they didn't realize that the maintenance updates were so important in that moment for some reason. They didn't mention them.
Well, even season 5, right? Like as you mentioned, they didn't mention it.
Oh no, season 5 was on. I can't remember actually. So it's quite a specific roadmap that they showed on the live stream. It was slightly different to the one you actually would find.
Yeah, no, I remember. I thought it was just the Road Core one where it had like all the stuff that they were planning to do in Road Core, but it was just they were so like wrapped up that making Road Core is like the players want that, if you know what I mean. Like that's content that they didn't realize that it's just not at all.
Well, it's like that's not in. Well, okay, that is true, but it's also like it's not inherently true. It was just really poor, inevitable, but also poor timing, right? It's like it was out of touch at the moment because we were off the back of what was kind of just not a good update.
The worst updates we've ever had.
Yeah, and it's like and then there was this immediate sense of basically abandonment is what a lot of people felt.
Yeah, people were already saying that, right? And everyone was like, no, like even we were like, no, they're not giving up on Deep Rock, right? They're not. They just said it's an evergreen. Like they're not giving up on Deep Rock, and then they turn to us and say, oh, so for, news on Deep Rock, we're not working on it now, and they're like, what? What? What do you mean you're not working on it? And then obviously they elaborated a little bit more, not as much as they should have, but like, oh yeah, no, season 5 is still coming, but it's in the future and it's to do with Rogue Core. But yeah, it's the worst announcement I could think of. Like they shouldn't have said game or something like that. They should have just announced it as a new game, like just out the bat. Like,
yeah, so it should have said
that's schedule.
On the schedule for sure.
It should games that we're publishing, and then like our new game, and so people would have started getting really hyped up the game. Also fearing the worst, which is reasonable because that would have been the but or maybe getting overly hyped because they think the new game's like actually gonna come soon or whatever. But the basically people and they got it. It's being delayed and not being worked on until like next year, which is not true. But they don't know that, right? Because they didn't fucking tell anyone about the maintenance update.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's the main thing. I can't. So I've just looked at the Rogue Core roadmap. It's not exactly the same. They had this like custom one basically. It was like the Ghost Ship roadmap is what it actually was. What they showed on the live stream. I remember now. Where it's kind of like it only had like the main stuff. It had all of the games that they're publishing and it had season 5 and it had Rogue Core. But it didn't have the maintenance updates on it, and there was no mention of them in word either, like just like spoken. It didn't say anything about it either. That came later, and that was why I was so. I could have. I shouldn't say this. I was about to say I tried so hard to make sure people knew, but I was like, I kind of did. I really wanted people to know about this because Ghost Ship were not
right.
Ghost Ship were not doing that themselves, and that is. It's like it's the worst kind of blunder because it was them just not communicating something that was really good that they're doing, and they're just not talking about it.
You just told
and
it.
There's a very good chance it's because they those updates were planned. I think it could have something to do with the updates not being. They weren't planned to be as big as they actually are, or at least certainly this first one was. If you actually look at the explanation of what they were in like the main roadmap post, it sort of talked about how these aren't adding content; it's just everything else. Obviously, that immediately got flipped on its head, and I think that's partially why. But it didn't matter. That was still something needed to mention because it immediately placated you. It worked on you,
yeah,
for sure. It worked on me, obviously, but I was already kind of like, you know, I wasn't gonna give up.
When I was watching the Rogue Core announcement, I was genuinely sitting there like, it's over. It was over. Like I thought, that's it. Just call it a day. Like Deep Rock's done. I'm looking forward to Rogue Core, but that's in like in a couple months, and so it was like I'm not going to look forward to it now. I guess this is just over now for like next 2 to 3 years, right? Right? Because Rogue Core is probably not all. So it's like, all right, rip. And then obviously, yeah. And then you were like, you're getting maintenance updates. And I'm like, hell yeah. Because like instantly it's like, okay, they're not abandoning the game like they made you think, right? Like they literally sat there like, yeah, we're just gonna come back to Deep Rock in like a year. Like bye, see ya.
Yeah. And that's obviously like, that's okay, like that's something I'm still willing to stand behind as well. Is like something we basically did earlier in this episode is kind of walk back, like when we were like trying to counter Axis Chronos and what he was saying about season 4. And we were like, no, they're actually doing all of it. But I think we sort of walked that back. But I think what we're still willing to stand on is that, or willing to stand against is people like who are like, oh, I miss like the old Ghost Ship. It's like, where are they? It's like
the biggest stupid argument ever. Yeah, they're like, here.
They're back. The Ghost Ship are back.
Old Ghost.
Because it's like, so, but yeah, but they're not working Deep Rock as much. It's like, yeah, I know, but what they're doing with Deep Rock at the moment
Rock
is still
would not solicitate.
more old Ghost Ship, and even then, it's more specifically Rogue Core is the fact that they get the chance to literally be themselves, be old Ghost Ship again by making a new game.
Put in development a new game in the Deep Rock IP. Like that's probably going to bring out old Ghost Ship even more than we would have hoped. Like they're going to be like a new Ghost Ship Prime, like with all the new exits and stuff. Like it's going to be crazy. It's going to pop off. It's going to be so awesome in a year. So really cool thing. But
also, okay, hold on. It's actually getting pretty ridiculous. I don't know what you just did. You did some wizardry. You actually do anything?
Literally nothing. I did not even move.
Oh, it's back.
I just reconnected. No.
I think we'll just have to carry on. I think we'll just.
You just talk more. But I think we're near the end anyway. Maintenance update.
Well, obviously the maintenance update. So it was still like something that was an immediate, I guess, boon or an immediate alleviation to the pain of everything else. I think it was, especially because of there being inherently just out of the gate, there being 2 of them planned immediately, and it's like, okay, we can actually block out like the time until season 5 in a way that is not even that. What we can actually do is actually have multiple smaller waits until these separate updates, which is already a good thing. But it was like, okay, but they are not like proper content, It's like it's going to be on a different sort of scale, and yeah, okay. So the first maintenance update, it didn't add like a new enemy or a new overclock or anything like that, right? But it still definitely went beyond what we were expecting. In fact, so the truth is, the expectations that I sort of set out for myself for what the first maintenance update was going to be would probably have been bad, actually. I was really lowballing it. Like, really lowballing. What I expected from the first maintenance update was almost purely bug fixes and enemy balancing was my expectation. And yet we got, obviously the weapon balancing is its own sort of thing, but we still got weapon balancing. We got all the enemy balancing that possible, including especially like Rockpox balancing. The season toggle, which was such a necessary thing, but was so... That's why it was so good. And then, of course, the weapon maintenance system, which was just a completely new invention that has so far actually... Like, I think it's worked on a lot of people. It's just a cool new thing to do.
You, isn't it?
No.
But you've been doing it.
Yes, but no. I've just been...
working towards the yellow jacket.
Yeah, I've just been far more taken with other games at the moment. It's like I don't need Deep Rock right now, but I'm really like grateful for the maintenance update and just for what it represents, basically. Because it represents Ghost Ship just being like, we're gonna essentially take a few weeks to just do everything we can that we know people want or that we know people will like. Like the weapon maintenance system was not asked for, but it's still something that they very correctly assumed people would like, and everything else was asked for as well. So it's just like,
and well, the weapon maintenance was asked for, but not like now. People weren't asking for it in this. It was just a general idea that like people liked in the past. That was like a year old, I think, or some shit. It was just an idea kicking around. And then they were like, fuck it, we'll add it. And it worked. And I don't know. I think the weapon maintenance was a little bit... The season being a year. Like, it was kind of like that. Them trying to do that. But, I don't know. I think...
well, I think that's
difficult.
why... I think that's why they added one for each previous season. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
I think they did that because they could excuse it because it's like a seasonal feature. And that's also the best thing about it is that it's a seasonal feature. Like it's something that they've added on to the season package, which means they're already starting to do that. It doesn't inherently address our concern of having the season actually last longer, because I reckon that if you've gotten all of them, like I don't think you're going to get all the weapon maintenance paint jobs before season 5, for example. I might not. But I think if you did and you were starting with just the season 5 one, you would probably, unless you ignored them, you would get them all probably before you finish the pass. So it doesn't inherently address like that concern. Um,
Yeah.
but it's still something extra that seasons are going to bring inherently. So they're already thinking along the right lines. But we still want them to sort of break down this certain, barrier. But they're still on the right lines. It's like interesting. And then I think the only it's like this is going to sound really entitled, but trust me, it's not. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's like I was somewhat disappointed with weapon balancing in the maintenance update but I think it's just because the trailer was did it kind of dirty, where it was like focused on the stubby, where the core gun actually arguably got reworked more, and it was very focused on like them. There wasn't actually much breadth. The biggest thing, obviously, was actually the electrocution change in general, which was a really cool surprise, and another example of them thinking along the right lines of like that showed a real willing to change something that had been the case for like a really long time. And that's the kind of thing we actually really like to see. It's the kind of thing you wouldn't expect them to change because it feels I guess it just feels permanent, it doesn't come across as something that they would change, and yet there they go, changing it, and for the better. So that's also just a really good thing to see, especially because we know that the next thing we're getting is another one of these updates in March. Which just fills me with glee, frankly. I am inherently interested because we don't know what it's going to be. And obviously, we'll get to what we want from it in the next episode. But so...
but the stuff they've already said as well, right? Like, it's not off the table that they do the perk rework.
And also because like I said, I could argue I was slightly disappointed because of the lack of breadth with the weapon balancing. I wanted it to be exactly like Season 4. And it wasn't. So that's just on me.
Gets, like, really radically changed, and then the rest are just kind of like tinkered with.
Yeah, but it was more like 2 weapons got that, and then it was like just sort of sprinkling things elsewhere. But apparently, like the next one will have more in it, which I like that for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I like getting more weapon balancing, but it's also like acknowledgement that weapon balancing it's not that they've like reached like a plateau or anything. There's still like plenty more they can do. And to just make everything feel better overall, because I think they're far from done with weapon balancing, and I think it will just keep changing anyway, just based on other factors, like things that you can't really control. So, it's good to know that not only is are they not done? Well, not only is there more to do in the next one, it's just like there's just more to do in general. I like that sort of implication that they know weapon balancing is going to, and it's obviously going to continue when we get like more overclocks.
I think that is like, obviously this is more next video when we do that next year or whatever, but like that is really something that's like the difference between Season 4 and the maintenance update. Is Season 4 they felt entirely out of touch with what people wanted, and the maintenance update and the things we've heard of from there on are like, here's what we know you want, here's what we know you want. Clearly you love weapon balancing, so that's just going to be a staple from now on, right? Like, they're like, every maintenance update is going to have it, and then next season we're going to add like at least 1 overclock to like every gun, or was it like it was a 1 overclock to every primary was their goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is obviously sounds pretty light, and it might be, who knows? We might
but
come
it's more
to
than the 0 we've gotten for like the last 3 years.
Exactly, exactly, and it's like,
so
it's just good thing, and I think that means we need to kind of tie up our actual, I guess, thoughts on the year. I like the idea of saying that. Well, I don't like it. I don't like that this was a bad year, because I think it was. But this is a bad year, but it didn't actually set. It didn't set any kind of standard. This is not what to expect going forward. This is not. Well, part of it is the maintenance update, obviously is, but I just mean like this is not what they want out of a year in Deep
Rock. I feel like if you want to picture like a tunnel where it goes like this, like, can you picture that? Like, you can, like, a tunnel where it dips down. And last year,
we can't conjure a tunnel.
Yeah,
I can conjure a tunnel.
We were going into this tunnel, and it looked dark, right? Season 3. Remember how dark the future of the game looked? It looked bleak. It looked grim. It did not look good, right?
And then we get
had
to.
the same
Do
attitude.
you mind if I want to actually jump? I want to actually assume where you're going with this, and we get to. I guess we're just still in the tunnel for like a while, and then we
Season
get to,
4.
and then we get to like the rogue core. Actually, no, we get to like after season 4, and it's like they blocked up the end of the tunnel or something.
No, basically the tunnel is warped. So like, normally you go into a tunnel, you can see the light on the other side. This tunnel, you're facing downwards. The light is blocked off. We're just heading in deep dark abyss where we think the future is just as grim. We're never gonna come out the other end. Everything is doomed. Season 4 comes out. It's dog shit. It's the downhill that everyone was fearing. The community as a whole were overall negative. It is over. It is over. They're working on another game. It's over. Holy shit. It's the sun. We can see it. We've come out the other end of the tunnel. Next year looks so bright. And the year after, even brighter. Like, maybe the future of Deep Rock is never going to be, like, as good as we hoped it would be, right? We hoped that it would continue to get as cool updates as it always had from now on forever. It's just possible. It's just not happening.
Going to be what Deep Rock's going to be from here, and I actually feel quite actually no, I don't feel comfortable. The reason I don't feel comfortable saying what I'm about to say is because they still haven't. Don't scratch the carpet, you fucking idiot. I'm still not 100% comfortable saying that maintenance updates are a permanent thing, but I'm pretty sure they will be. It's just that they haven't actually said that. It wasn't like for example, if they were, then I would expect like one on the roadmap after season 5. But I'm expecting it, and that sort of cadence, the idea of like one season per year with multiple small updates in between, is pretty much exactly what we wanted. If we're still stuck with seasons, that's like kind of where we want things to go.
I wouldn't blame them if maintenance updates only occur during this period of time, because it makes sense, right? This period of time, we only have Deep Rock, so therefore we need more stuff to happen to it. But come next year, come the end, we will have Rogue Core and Deep Rock, right? At no point in time should we be sitting there and not having content coming our way either side, right? But this time they're working on Rogue Core, but they have nothing to show for it. We have nothing to show for it, so we need these maintenance updates. As much as I would like maintenance updates to keep being a thing in Deep Rock, once we have Rogue Core, and if everyone has access to Rogue Core, like on Xbox or like the same consoles as Deep Rock, then at that point you don't need the maintenance patches. If instead of you can just play Rogue Core, right? If that's just an alternative you can do when that's getting updated.
And obviously there's a pretty big aspect of that I think we're probably going to get into next time. That's quite specific to us. It's quite specific. Yeah. But I think we need to save that. Because otherwise we'll just otherwise we'll just go off the rails in a way that might be inappropriate for the time. I mean, I don't think it's going to inherently change before the next episode, but I mean, I don't know. I think one thing I need to sort of really, I guess hammer in, and it has something to do with what you consider like the core things, like the core pieces of content for Deep Rock, and the fact that 2023 has just been it's just been absent of what we expect. Basically, it's just been absent. And it's like, the game's still going, it's still getting free content, but that's the point. It's an ongoing game that Ghost Ship have a very strong love for and want for it to be as good as it can be. So I am not going to not point out the fact that it's going to have been, and assuming season 5 adds one of these things, it's going to have been over 2.5 years since we got a biome or a mission type. And those things work.
We didn't get a biome this year.
We need one of those things in sight pretty soon. Because that's the juice. That's the juice.
We didn't get a game mode. We didn't get a secondary objective. We didn't get a piece of equipment. We didn't get, like, I don't know, anything. Like, the most anything we got was the Stingtail and the Spreader being in the normal pool of enemies. That is the most generic, significant addition we got. We just that for this year, which is bad.
And like obviously, so
really,
there's the idea of weapons as well, but like weapons are off the table, right?
Yeah,
but
obviously.
But obviously, the next step is like the step down is overclocks, and we are going to get more overclocks. So that's already something good to chew on, but it's not the same There's no because
It's
obviously
still not
it's,
something to
but
point at.
it's
right?
better. But what it's better than is it's better than warnings though, because warnings is like the halfway house of missions, for example, right?
Yeah.
But and overclocks are the halfway house of weapons. But overclocks are much better than warnings proportionally to each other, which is why we need.
Especially
Which is
since
why
we've gotten
missions
so
and
many
missions and
warnings.
biomes are something that still needs to happen. Again, we need more of those.
Yeah.
Not more of those, but we need something.
Preferably bio.
It's not. It's difficult to say that it's a need, but I think it is because that's what happens when when the game's still going. If they were done with the game, they wouldn't be asking for more content, you know. But they're not done, and that means you have to look at the fact that it's been a long time since any of its biggest biggest boxes have been ticked, you know, in terms of what an update can bring. So season 5, they said that it won't be a game changer, and I agree that it shouldn't be, but it should also be. It should also have some juice.
Add something.
It should also...
Yeah, like you don't have to change the game. Just add another. In fact, they've been trying to change the game.
I want the opposite of changing the game. I want more of the stuff that. I want more of the stuff that they could add that inherently changes the game. I want a biome too. We're gonna draw a biome. That's what we're gonna do.
Honestly, I mean, probably yeah. If
that was one of my
we get a
ideas.
thing saying a biome, definitely.
Oh yeah, fuck
but,
yeah.
like,
I mean, well, it's something that we're already planning. Not planning, I should say, but like at the time when it gets more set in stone, I definitely want to, you know, bring back an element of the bingo again for the overclocks. But that's sort of like that's kind of trivial and not too close in the future, but still. Yeah, I think that's a good place
It is
to
a
leave
thought
it.
to bear in mind that I mean this year is over now. Essentially, I mean they're not working on any games right now. Like, you know,
and that's why
we're moving into the next year.
Well, yeah, and that's why there's not going to be we're just taking a week off. Basically, it's like it's not that insane, really, is it? It's like given that we only record together once per week, but still, it's like there's not going to be any news. I'm going to put out. We recorded a while ago this video where we just made fun of people on the Steam forums. Do you remember the maintenance update? That's already done. It's actually uploaded. I just need to actually like format it and publish it. So that will come out like maybe on Boxing Day or something. But there's not going to be
tomorrow. You're probably better just like mid next.
No, just put it out in the week.
But you said, Boxing Day, not Christmas Eve. I flipped them.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Yeah, I'll just put it out on Boxing Day or something. Because it's not going to be a build showcase, but the build showcase will actually be the first thing. Actually, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
But then there'll be the next episode of this back, which obviously that's like 3 episodes of the podcast back to back, but that's fine. I don't care. That's good.
There'll be a week off in the middle of it. But...
Well, exactly. A week off,
no,
but...
we're
which will be on the. Hold on, I think I know when this is next. Oh, actually, be on the 6th. But the next actual new video will be on the 2nd of January. But we're recording again on the 6th of January. For this next episode. Which I don't know if that's before they get back or not, but hopefully it will be. I think it actually almost might benefit from us still having not heard anything from them. Just being completely completely in our own heads rather than anyone else's might actually be beneficial. But yeah,
and
next episode will be basically not the wish list. I don't want to call it that because honestly, the last and it won't taint it if we do that. It's just like if you went back to the episode that is the 2023 wish list, that was fucking miserable. we were not on. Don't. It was not like it wasn't fun.
I mean,
but we also want to hear. I'll put out a post for this actually because the comments haven't been too hot. I'll put out a post like asking what people want as well. I think that'd be interesting. Like just from what we want from 2024.
We got 3 distinct things we can kind of talk about really.
Shut up!
Like the maintenance update, which should be quick and easy, and that's kind of maybe just a more right now what the thing we want most in quick kind of content.
Yeah.
Then. Season 5, what we're hoping, what we're expecting. Like, I'm thinking just, like reclaim a biome, or not reclaim a biome, but like the deep biome. Like, that's some shit like on those ideas, like substantial ideas. And then Road Core. We'll talk about what we can hope from Road Core. That will be beginning of next year, I think.
Yeah.
Is that what you got in mind too? I think that's it.
Yeah, those are the 3 things. I guess we can
Yeah.
focus on. And obviously, and also what you want to see.
Yeah.
You there. I'm not going to end this video with. I'm not going to end this podcast with me like grating my microphone. Okay. If anyone actually got to that, I apologize. I had no good reason to do that. I thought it was funny,
I'm
and I think
sure
it is
anyone
funny,
that
but
watches-
frankly, I probably shouldn't have done it. What we're actually going to
Anyone
end
that
it with
watches-
is saying Merry Christmas and Happy New Year
Yeah.
from us and to Ghost Ship. Hope everyone has a good Christmas.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can come back
I
in the
hope
new year
your-
with a fresh start, and good things will
Hope
come.
your stockings are full of Deep Rock Galactic merchandise. Nice. Are we done? Or are you just relaxed?
Just relaxing. Gotta relax.
This is the after credit scenes. I got to how far? 15. And I even though I could eat them all now, I eat them in order still. You still got to find the numbers, or else where's the fun in it, really? Right? But yeah, now I'm sick of them. So I'll that the rest of them probably tomorrow. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
And
to
a
all,
happy new year.
a happy new year.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if
when
you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake.
Goodness sake. We should have done that. We should have done a Christmas Carol sing along. Yeah. Are you gonna end it like anytime soon?